So food for bees, right, is flowers, pollen, nectar. And if we're trying to focus on native bees, native plants are what we should focus on, right? Because those are the plants that the native bees have adapted to.
So what flowers best attract native bees into your yard? Some you would expect.
Texas sage,
butterfly weed,
Dune sunflower,
Other bee-friendly plants might surprise you.
blueberries,
yopon holly,
saw palmetto.
mature oaks and pines.
Today, we learn what plants to include in a North Florida bee garden. In our previous segment, we talked about overwintering and nesting habitat for bees. But then, spring comes. Our native bee species start to wake up, and they're hungry.
So flowers, the diversity of flowers, lots of different species, lots of different heights, right? Low things, medium, tall.
In other words, not just wildflowers.
The basis of any good habitat is the trees first. And in the panhandle, the oaks, mature oaks and pines are critical and irreplaceable.
I would say that you want to plant a diversity of native wildflowers and native trees and shrubs. Something like blueberries. Here we're in the blueberry patch, so we'll highlight blueberries. They bloom in February. A lot of native trees are early bloomers, February, March.
And then after that, you have some smaller trees. You might have red buds or dogwoods or fringe tree. And then you have some woody shrubby plants, and those are also critical as well. Native blueberries, great pollinator plants. Our native hollies, which some are trees and some are shrubs. So here we have one of our native hollies. This is Ilex vomitoria, yopon holly. And as I mentioned, the hollies are really important for early emerging native bees that come out in spring.
Palm is our native tree. It's usually when it blooms, it is loaded with bees. But we also have saw palmetto, which is a smaller shrub. And then we have this guy here. This is little blue stem palmetto or sable minor. You'd want to go with flowers that are kind of clusters, kind of squat, maybe flat, like have a little platform for the bees to land on.
You want to stick with native plants that have a diversity of shapes, sizes, colors, bloom times.
Here's another example of a low maintenance plant that just attracts a lot of different pollinators, including bees. This is our Texas sage, Texas salvia, Salvia coccinea, red sage. It is a little weedy, so just know that when you plant it, the seeds are gonna set and you're gonna find sage growing out of the cracks of the sidewalk, but it can be easily controlled.
So here we have one of our 21 native milkweed species. This is Asclepias tuberosa, var. Ralphsii. And this is larval food for monarch butterflies and queen butterflies as well. But a lot of different insects use this species in particular for its nectar and pollen.
Bees really go after those composite flowers, which are basically one flower. Say, example would be like a native sunflower, and there are a bunch of tiny little tubes within that actual flower where it contains the pollen, the stigma, and the nectar. So those are highly attractive to bumblebees, and other little native bees, wasps. And examples of those would be anything in the Asteraceae family, like Brachellia, Liatris. Silphium definitely is a wonderful addition. This is Dune sunflower. It is another one of our native sunflowers. It is another composite flower with many different flowers within the flower.
really easy to grow, doesn't need much water, doesn't really need much fertilization at all, just a good kind of rich soil.
This is actually right here a sunflower in full bloom. This is Helianthus radula. It's rayless sunflower.
For much of the year, all you see of this plant is leaves, and then it blooms in the fall. Many plants only bloom for a few weeks at specific times of year, so you want to include plants for every season.
In the fall, there's so many different wildflowers that are so crucial to so many different pollinators. Something like Monarda, if you want to see a plethora of insects that you never see on any other plant, Monarda is the one. It attracts all kinds of really different wasps and even some tiny solitary bees as well, sweat bees, along with Brachialia and asters. They have a pretty short blooming window, just a few weeks in the fall, along with your Lytris and goldenrod as well.
Finally, a plant not everyone loves.
If you have a spot in your yard that you let go wild, you are going to get Spanish needles or Biden's alba. This plant right here, white flowered plant, it's very weedy, it's annoying because it gets stuck to your clothes, but this thing is great.
Those were just a few of the many recommendations shared by our plant friends. For the full list and more content on pollinator gardening, visit the WFSU Ecology blog. For WFSU, I'm Rob Diaz de Villegas.